Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. This is A Life Well Spent. My name is Kelly, and on this channel I document my financial journey from budgeting to debt payoff to saving and investing. All of that can kind of be found here. I utilize this channel to pretty much keep myself honest. Today's video is all about my sinking funds for 2025. So for those of you who don't know what a sinking fund is, the idea behind a sinking fund is that it is money that is set aside to pay something out in the future. And you can set them up in a lot of different ways. Some people will make kind of their own bank account for each thing. And I had a separate bank account for like all of my sinking funds. And now I actually just keep them all in a high yield savings account because it occurred to me that they're just sitting in another account and I don't really spend them out all that much, and it's not the end of the world to just kind of make a transfer of funds when I actually go to pay something out. So some people have sinking funds that are like just kind of all one big pile of funds, and it's almost like a slush fund for them, and they just kind of total up the amount of that they expect to need for these certain categories and kind of put it in there. Others will kind of indicate in their budget, like they'll have different line items, and the idea being they're going to keep track of like a bunch of different categories. That's kind of how I do it. Now I utilize a high yield savings account that lets me do buckets now. I didn't in the past. Last year actually I got the high yield savings account. I started using an Ally high yield savings account, and so far I'm really loving it. Actually kicking myself for not having done it sooner. There is a referral link down below if you are interested in checking out Ally, if you're looking for a high yield savings account. I'm not sure if they're the best rate right now. They were when I was looking at getting one in the first place. I think their rates were like 5%. They are not 5% anymore because interest rates have gone down a little bit, but they were at the time. And they are, I want to say I went with them because it was easier to be able to like take money out of an ATM with them based on where I live. So definitely if you're interested in utilizing a high yield savings account, like really make sure that you're going to be able to easily access your money. And for me and where I live, I found Ally to be the best for that. Anyway, all that to say, before that, I kind of had it all in like a separate checking account. And I was keeping track of it on a spreadsheet. Now I still keep track of it on a spreadsheet just as kind of like an additional check for me. But one of the things I super love about Ally, and I'm sure that I think there's at least one other that does this, but I'm not positive which one it is, and I don't know if any of the others do or not. But they'll let you create buckets inside your savings account. So I just have a bucket that's labeled for that particular sinking fund, and then I know exactly how much has gone in there, and I can transfer money from my checking account directly to my savings account in that specific bucket. I can transfer money out of that specific bucket. So it's really made life super easy, especially to kind of keep track of everything, because like those are the actual amounts. Whereas like what I do on a spreadsheet is not necessarily like, it's probably what should be in there, but if I forget to transfer money out and I just end up paying it out of my checking account or something, then like the amounts don't add up. So like I said, I still keep track of it on a spreadsheet just kind of for my own edification and just as an additional check. But as of right now, I put it in those buckets. It helps me keep things super organized as far as my sinking funds go. But I do have the spreadsheet backup if I need. So this year I've made some changes to my sinking funds. If you don't know what a sinking fund can do for you, I would definitely recommend considering them. You have to think of them as money that is already spent, but just hasn't been paid out or handed over yet, right? So as an example, one of my constant sinking funds is for my car insurance. I don't pay my car insurance monthly because it is cheaper to pay it in the way that it's set up. So some people can do like a yearly. Mine is every 6 months, but like if you can pay in advance for the whole time frame, it's way cheaper. In fact, actually, let me pull up my phone here for a second. I just got my renewal notification. Let me look at this here. Because mine renews in February. So if I pay in full, it's $369. If I bill in installments, it'll cost me $464. So I'm saving almost $100 just by being able to pay it in full. However, and again, this is another purpose of sinking funds. Sinking funds can be really helpful for those times when you have this big bill that just annihilates your budget for that month, right? I have a friend who has heats her house with oil. And if you heat your house with oil, you know that there comes a time when you have to fill that thing and it ain't cheap. And so like, I remember the first time she was talking about, like, she was so stressed out about this bill. It was the first year that they had been in the house. And so I think they probably just weren't really thinking about it. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, this is low, we have to fill it. And they gave them an estimate and they just went, oh my God, that's so much money. And, so when I talked to her about it, I said, listen, in the future, like, just know that like, you're going to have that bill come due every year around wintertime. And, so I just set a little bit of money aside every month. And that way, like, even if you only get halfway there, then like, you're only having to pay the other half. You're not having to come up with the whole thing all at once because you have set it aside ahead of time. My mother would always complain that when it came time to pay her taxes, because she, oh God, her house has been paid off for probably 10, 15 years. And she'd always escrowed like her taxes and insurance and all that kind of stuff within her mortgage payment. So never really thought about it. And then all of a sudden it was, oh my God, now I have this huge bill on my property taxes. And I was like, Mom, like, you already paid, like, you have to set that aside separately, in her mind, she was like, oh God, I'm just gutting my savings. And I was like, no, like, consider that like, money that actually has already been spent. You just haven't paid it out yet. So make a sinking fund for that. And so now she does. And when that huge bill comes due, she's just like, meh, okay, there it goes. There's the money. Not a big deal. So that's the idea of a sinking fund. It's those things that like would really like kill your budget, or things that you have to pay for every year. And you can set a little bit of money aside to pay them when they come due. And one of the greatest benefits of that is that it's going to prevent you from spending that money on something that it didn't need to be spent on, right? Because I know my mother would get to that point and she would be like, oh, now I don't have as much in savings. And she's like looking at all the things she had bought over the last year and been like, ugh, I didn't need that, So instead, like, set the money aside because, again, it's something that had to be paid. So, all right, all that to say, without further ado, I've made a few changes to my sinking funds this year, but not too terribly many. I always it's not really a sinking fund per se, but there will always be the emergency fund. I did reach my goal last year of putting $20,000 in my emergency fund. So I'm super excited about that. I didn't think I was going to get there, so pretty stoked. I think I was helped a lot by the fact that I put it in a high yield savings account, and I figured it was a stretch goal for me in the first place, and I knew that. And I figured that I would probably get close-ish. But I didn't quite think I'd get there. I thought that I would be within 1,000, and I got at least halfway there just purely from the interest on the account. So super psyched about that. I also have a medical fund. I established this last year at some point because I realized that even though I have an HSA and I have money set aside in my HSA that I can use to pay for medical expenses, if I actually pay out of pocket for my medical expenses now, I can reimburse myself later with the money that's invested in my HSA that I can then keep invested until I'm 65. 65. And so I thought, you know what, like, I'm going to keep doing that. It's not a lot of money. I originally had it set to $2,000. That's my max out of pocket. And then I realized when I went to the dentist that I should probably put another 1,000 in there to cover dental. And um, so that used to be 2,000 for this year. At some point, I think last year I tried to up it to 3,000, and I was like, I'll just kind of slowly but surely creep up there. So like that's my top off level in the medical fund is $3,000, and I'm gonna try to get there. Realistically, I only need it to be there starting July 1st because my insurance year turns over on June 30th to July 1st. So I'm just going to work to getting 3,000 in there, and then just kind of replace at that point whatever whatever I spend out, then I'll work on replacing back in there. Subscriptions, I'm actually not going to contribute anything this year, or at least for most of the year. We'll see how things go to subscriptions, because my mother and I cut back a lot on the subscription services that we've utilized, but I didn't change the amount of money I was putting in, because I was like, I don't really know how this is all going to shake out once I get to December, and we'll figure out what's going to go on in 2025. And so when I looked at the subscriptions that I had and kind of totaled up the cost of them, I'm under $1,000. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to leave it like this for a year, and then we'll look at 2026 and see if I, at that point, I'll just start, kind of replacing some of the money. And I may at some point later on in the year, like maybe September, October, start putting money in there so that there is money in there to cover stuff that would like maybe come out in the early parts of the month. But I don't know that anything is. Like, I'd have to actually go back through and look and see, if I don't have to really pay anything till like March or April, then I have time to, get the money in there. So we'll see. We'll see what how that shakes out as the year goes. Another sinking fund that I keep is a house repair fund. Now, I top that off at about $1,000. If I had something specific I was saving up for, like I really need to replace the kitchen ceiling and that I have, and I don't know how much that's going to cost, but if I come in and I get an estimate and someone says, oh yeah, it'll be about $1,800, then I would work to like up that a little bit. But for right now, I have $1,000 in there, and it's pretty much designed for like any little thing I need worked on here or there. The money can come out of there. It doesn't cover a lot because I have an old house, which has been the bane of my existence. This old house, like I have put in a sump pump, I have replaced the furnace, I've replaced the water heater. Like I think now like most of the big stuff is good, but yikes, it's been an expensive couple of years in this house. And the $1,000 most certainly did not cut it, but the emergency fund did. So that's what it's there for. But house repair really is just the minor repair kind of stuff, not the big ticket items. The next fund that I have, I always keep a giving fund, and I top this off at about $1,000. I've decided this year, I kept my Nittany Lion Club contribution. I give $200 to my alma mater for their field hockey team, and I used to keep that separate, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized like there's not really a need to keep that separate. Ultimately, that bill that comes due every January, and $200 is really not a lot of money. That is something I can easily float out of my cash flow if I end up like donating the $1,000 in my giving account. So it seemed silly to kind of keep them separate at this point. So I've put them together, and we'll kind of go from there. I keep a car insurance. As I mentioned earlier, I keep a car insurance sinking fund, and I put about $59 a month towards that. I also keep a car repair fund, and I put about $1,000 in that, and that covers a lot of different things. It covers like if I have to get my tires rotated. It covers if I have to get any kind of work or maintenance done on my car. It covers, an oil change. It covers when I have to get get my inspection and new registration and things like that. Covers all those things. And it is enough to cover those unless my car needs like some serious work. And it is an older car. She's a 2008 Honda Element, and I love her. She's crouching up on 200,000 miles. So I think I'm gonna have to. She's gonna need probably a couple $1,000s worth of like flushing of fluids and this and that kind of work coming up soon. So I think while I normally keep that at about $1,000, I think I'm gonna work in the next couple of months towards like shoving a little bit more money in there just to kind of cover that expense. Um, so yeah, that's where that's at. I did for one point think about combining them together, but I thought, you know what? Mm, it's almost $400. Like that is a lot harder to maneuver my cash flow for $400 in a month. And so if I end up having like my insurance due and $1,000 bill at the same time, I think that would probably not be a good idea. So I have kept them separate. I know a lot of people combine them as just general car, but I'm keeping it separate for now. Gift fund. So every year I try to get away with just putting $600 in my gift fund, and every year I end up spending more than that, and I don't really know why. So I'm gonna put 1,000 in there and be done with it. And I leave a gift fund. This covers Christmas gifts. This covers birthday gifts. I don't actually have that many people that I give gifts for. There are some folks that I will like go in halvesies or, quarters or something with someone on gifts. Like my mother and I usually pool our resources to buy like nicer gifts for my niece when it's her birthday and for Christmas. But I think $1,000 is probably a good upper limit. Like I'm not going to try to spend all of that, but I want to make sure that the money is there in the first place. Garden. I keep a little garden fund. I don't usually contribute to it over the summer, but I kind of start like in the fall and throughout the winter so that when spring comes around, I have the money available for any, plants that I need to buy, if I need to buy mulch or, anything like, like my hose gets a tear in it and I've got to replace it or whatever, anything of that nature. So yeah, I usually probably try to keep about, this is not one that I necessarily try to continue to keep at a specific level, but I try to save up about $600 for the garden and then, kind of adjust from there. I don't know that I have a lot of space to buy a ton more plants. There is some landscaping I'd kind of like to do, but what little bit is involved in my garden, I don't think is gonna manage well with just that. I mean, I don't think that's gonna cover a lot of the landscaping fees. So that's gonna be the horse of a different color. Now, clothing. I tend to not buy a lot of clothes or shoes or anything like that. And I tend to wear a lot of the same stuff over and over and over again because truly, I just could not be bothered. I spend exactly 0 minutes in the morning, seconds in the morning, worrying about what I wear in a day. In fact, sometimes people have kind of looked at me and been like, on a Friday and be like, didn't you wear that like earlier this week, Monday or Tuesday? I was like, you know what? I did laundry Wednesday. Like it's possible. I don't know. We have all these like theme days at work at times and people are like, why didn't you participate? And I went, I forgot. And honestly, I put 0 thought into what I wear. So like, it's basically the extent of the thought I put in is this comfortable? Yes. Okay. That's what I'll wear. So I tend to not buy a lot of clothes. And at this point, like I'm really committing this year to my health and to my fitness. So with that, I expect there to be some weight loss. So I might get to the point where I need to buy some clothes, but I'm hoping that like, I'm hoping to fit back into other clothes. Like I have hung on to them with the hope that like, okay, like these might work as like transition clothing. And then, maybe when I'm on, kind of at the end of this year's fitness journey, I can kind of be like, okay, invest in some clothes. Cause it might be, then those clothes can take you another year or whatever. Who knows? I have probably a solid 80 pounds I could afford to lose. So we'll see if I'm able to do that. But like 40 pounds will make a huge difference in and of itself. And so if I lose 40 pounds, I would probably need new clothes, except I hung on to, the clothes that I had. So if I can fit back into those and go with those for a while, and if it takes me another year or two to lose, the next 40 pounds, then then okay, we'll go from there. And I'm of an age, I'm 44, so it's not exactly easy to lose weight anyway. It may take me longer, but at this point, like, I'm trying not to buy clothes at this size just to turn around and be able to, like, and then have to get rid of them. So trying to, like, make these clothes last. We'll see. If I end up in a new job, which is always a possibility, then I may have to buy new clothes anyway that are more fitting to the job I'm in. A new sinking fund for me this year, sort of. I mean, I kind of started doing it last year for my trip to the Bahamas, but I didn't actually kind of make an official fund because I was like, oh, I don't feel like adjusting all these things. So I did for this year, for coming into 2025. When I decided, when we booked our trip to the Bahamas, I kind of went, oh, if I just took like $20 and I just took $20 aside and, saved that up, and then that would give me just like stupid spend money. Like, I don't have to track it. I don't have to think about it. I just have it to spend, and I can spend it on whatever the heck I want to spend it on this trip. And I was like, yes, I'm going to do that. So I did that. And I really like that idea. And so when my mother and I decided we're going to take a trip to the European Christmas markets next year. And my mother and I, like, once we decided that, I was like, I think I want to do that same thing. And I kind of like, I was like, oh, if I do $20 every week for a year, I'm going to have about $1,060 to just go. And like, that will be my spending money. That'll be the money that I use to like buy the, buy the glühwein, to buy all the food that I want to eat. And like, if I want little souvenirs, whatever, like, it'll be perfect. I can use it for that. So I now have that as its own like line item. So it's easier to keep track of. I also have something new this year, is a health and fitness sinking fund. And the reason I have my health and fitness sinking fund is that, as a commitment to my health this year, I am intending on utilizing a personal trainer. I don't know how this is going to take shape yet. If you've seen some of my earlier videos, and I've talked a little bit about my plans here. I don't love the first meeting, or didn't love the first meeting that I had with the trainer that I was kind of assigned to. I don't necessarily know that I want to go the virtual trainer route, but so I'm still kind of searching. I haven't made a decision, but I know like the kind of average cost of trainers at the place where I go work out. So I'm sort of trying to factor some of that in so that I can utilize that. I kind of have a feeling, and I'm gonna to do him credit, I'm gonna reach out to him via email and say, hey, like, this is really more of what I was thinking, and is that what you can provide? And if not, no worries, I'll go someplace else or go some other avenue. But yeah, so we'll see how that goes. But anyway, in the meantime, I'm putting money aside because they're like $35 or $40 a session. So it's not cheap at all. But that's okay. I also have to look at it as like medical costs that are going to be the result of me not being as healthy and as fit as I can be at my age are greater than the cost of a trainer. So, there we go. All that to say, I think I'm down to my final sinking fund, and that is a new car fund. So a lot of the other sinking funds are things that I'm going, yep, I expect to pay a little bit out of this throughout the year, or I know I'm going to pay, like my car insurance. And then other types of sinking funds are funds where you're like, I am saving up for a long-term thing. Oh, I lied. This is my second to last. But this is a new one, and that's my new car fund. I love my Honda Element. I will drive her till the wheels fall off. But I am also well aware she's an old car. I live in deer country. It's not inconceivable that something happens that means that the car gets totaled. And there's no way the insurance is going to be like, yes, let's fix that, right? They're going to be like, oh, yeah, this is not worth fixing. So we're just going to total this for scrap. And now you have to buy a new car. So I know that as much as I would love to drive this car for the next 10 years, realistically, that's probably not going to happen. And it could be as short as a year because I could get in, an accident that isn't necessarily a major accident, but because my car is so old, it's not going to take much for the insurance to just be like, we would rather just get rid of that car. So, that being said, I need to start putting some money away because interest rates are astronomical, cost of cars are astronomical, and so yeah, I need a sinking fund to start. That is one of my biggest money goals this year. Is pretty much once my sinking funds are topped off, any extra money that I have that I can squeeze out of my budget goes into the new car fund. The other fund that I have that I forgot to mention is my travel fund. I try to keep about $2,000 in this fund. And I know that I'm going to have some money paid out for the Christmas markets. I'm going to have, plane tickets and hotel stays and all of that kind of stuff coming up soon. I'm going to try to use a lot of like points and miles and stuff like that for some of those things, which will be nice. I am thinking about taking some vacation time this summer, and I don't really know what I'm going to do with that. I might just kind of stay home and do nothing, and I might go hiking. I might go abroad and travel around. I don't really know what that's going to look like, but I want to be able to have money in there, and I keep money in there. I try to keep at least, like I said, $2,000 in there, just pretty much so if something comes up that I'm like, oh my God, I want to take advantage of that opportunity, then I want to be able to have some money I can pull from, instead of like tapping into, an emergency fund, because that's not what an emergency fund is for. So I guess my travel sinking fund is my emergency travel fund, right? When you go, oh, I want to go there and do that thing, let's go. Or you see some kind of really great deal and can go. So at any rate, those are my sinking funds for 2025. Do you have sinking funds? Leave a comment down below. What kind of things do you put sinking funds for? Do you think my sinking funds are missing anything? Is there something that you do that I don't, and I'm always looking to improve the way that I handle things. So if there's something that you guys add that you go, hey, this actually really helped me a lot, consider having this one right here. That would be great. Let me know. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Bye.